Sharpen all the edges that I hide, I'm a liar. See my body licking up the flames from the fire. They can never kill me, so they seal me even tighter. What remains without it? 40 in the strength, I'm a fighter. 50 in the faith, take me higher. I'm a rise up on my demons like the tide. Blood moon, you in my eyes. Blood moon, white faint, light blue, my stains, night flame. Demigod, into rooms, yeah. Sun breath hit my wrist, blade fall like the mistake. Cares like a peak, yeah. Malacheth, turn a tarnish to a grace side, yeah. Kiss of death, but I miss the way it tastes like, yeah. Through the frenzy and the flame, I keep the honor beside me. This faith will abide me, we're burning the tree. Sharpen all the edges that I hide, I'm a liar. See my body licking up the flames from the fire. They can never kill me, so they seal me even tighter. What remains without it? 40 in the strength, I'm a fighter. 50 in the faith, take me higher. I'm a rise up on my demons like a tide. Blood moon, you in my eyes. War horse in the crypt, a nightmare, great sword on my hip, in my heart. I'm a rise up on my demons like a tide. Blood moon, you in my eyes. Don't wish for walls to talk. They scream until I left the room. Blood writing on the walls tells me I'm born inside a tomb. I don't cower, I just power back. Water breathing got me feeling like I swallowed glass. Form 11, use a weapon, you don't see it. If you spy it, never try it, they can deflect. Weep when I sound, but I'm grim when I don't see that curse on the corpse. I'm a scourge, I'm the worst. Before the falling, I could bear this burden. 100 leagues ago, I found my purpose.
And we are live. Hello to all my BC WrestlePod nerds out there, and welcome to another rendition of Dual Dynasty, your weekly WWE review show here on the BC WrestlePod Twitch, YouTube, podcasting network conglomeration syndicate. I finally got through with it without taking a breath. I am one of your hosts this morning / afternoon, Mikey, and joining me this morning / afternoon, if you want to call it. First and foremost, he is back from the depths of being kidnapped by the Wyatt Six. It's the Professor. He is back.
Oh man, if I got to hang out with them, I don't know if I'd come back. That'd be amazing. What a lovely life that would be. Oh no, just
Professor,
doing the normal,
we've missed you.
the normal boring. Look at you, you're a teacher now. Things it's sucked my life away for a while, but I'm back for now. Someday I'll catch up on all these things. Like we were talking before we started, I don't feel like I missed a lot. I've caught up where I've needed to, but some of the same things are kind of happening, which is fine. There are other promotions where I'm like, what in the hell? You are
I cannot wait. If you come on Tuesday for AEW, me and Adolfo will catch you up on everything.
Oh man, wild.
We got a pay-per-view that's coming up this weekend too, so that's gonna be
Well, look, there's Nick. Nick's here too.
Exactly. And joining us this morning is the homie, friend to the channel, Nick, who got to do a fun interview with Al Snow a couple days ago as well, which is up on his YouTube channel as well.
What?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Dude.
Yeah. Yeah. You never know who's going to, as we like to say, you never know who's going to show up on the Nick Club Wrestling Happy Hour. So,
Did he call in?
yeah. That's a nice call.
Oh my God. Okay, we'll talk later about that. That's cool as hell. Oh,
Yeah, we'll get to we have some of the clips up on our channel. If you want to follow, definitely always appreciate the partnership. But yeah, it was a fun time learning about. We talked mostly a lot about like training and what he's up to now versus what he did in the past. So it's
oh man,
eye-opening fun time for Nikki and I to have an interview. And we got more to come this week. We got Leva. I got to get it right. Leva Bates on the show. So
sweet. Oh, dude, that's fantastic.
Oh,
but yeah, Mikey, thank you, Professor. Pleasure as always. Thank you for keeping it the not so forbidden door. So, love being here.
The way that I view it too, as much as everybody is trying to do the wrestling review game thing or whatever, I always feel that it's important to make some friends along the way instead of enemies. And so, thankfully, Nick is our homie and is probably our first true friend of the podcast that we got going on, because I'll hop over there, he hops over here. It's a great time. So, Nick, thank you for giving up your afternoon of watching the Jets lose to be here today.
They're winning right now. They're up by 1 point. Here we go. It's going to be a good day. It's always a good day when I can come on the podcast with you fellas. So I know it's going to be a good day. So positive thoughts. Let's go. But let's talk wrestling. The Jets.
Yes, that is very true. I mean, just like the NFL, WWE tends to be crazy around the holiday season, as we have witnessed this week on Raw and Smackdown. So let's just jump straight into this, because now we are, as of right now, we are 2 weeks away from Survivor Series. And so now that they're like, oh yeah, now that Crown Jewel is over, we got rid of those ugly looking championships, let's actually focus on the rest of the card for Survivor Series. So let's begin with everything that went down on Monday Night Raw. I am enjoying, they finally found the groove with these 2-hour shows, but they are only going to last for so long, because come January, according to the reports, we're going back to 3 hours of Raw, and supposedly we're also doing 3 hours of SmackDown.
Yeah.
Please, why? We don't need to. It's so good. It's been so good.
Listen, as like the two people here who follow NXT faithfully on this whole entire team of 10 people we've got, 2 hours is enough. Just figure out what you need to focus on and trim the fat, so to speak. NXT does an amazing job every week of just giving us like, this is the important stuff. We can fit this in 2 hours. Here you go.
Well,
but
I get it, because you
have a guy on this hill, but just here's my own pet peeve about this. If, in the past, if you buy it was pay-per-view, not PLE. I'm calling it a pay-per-view because that's what it is. Right? In the past, you'd pay to view the pay-per-view, which was 3 hours long. So if I'm watching a 2-hour Raw and then I get a 3-hour pay-per-view, it's more illustrious. That's my point. Now, if everything's 3 hours, what's going to be the difference between a great Raw after the holiday or whatever pre-show versus a PLE? You might get a great Raw that's better every week, and I don't like that. I like some prestige to my PLEs or pay-per-views or whatever you want to call them. All right, I'm shutting up now.
No, you're good, and I agree with you. We're in such an interesting time to be watching wrestling in general, because there's so much to watch. And sometimes that competition, not to go down this rabbit hole because we got stuff to talk about, the competition is huge. When you have, not to invoke all other productions, but when you have an AEW that has everybody and they have to fill what they're filling, and then you get these Netflix deals and these other TV deals and other things, now that we know the behind the scenes and stuff like that, I mean, they're just playing Risk with each other, right? There's just this big world board and they're just moving huge pieces all the time. But I do agree with you. Now, if everything's special, nothing's special. Like what are we getting at when we get to these big events? The PPV, I still say pay-per-view. I think that's
Participation trophy. It's a participation trophy.
Everybody gets to wrestle. I don't know. Like, and then like we were talking before we started, and I know we'll get there. Like, I don't mind going to, some abandoned YMCA and seeing people go through tables. That doesn't bother me. That's still fun. Now it's turned into sort of it's bigger than it ever was, and it's being done in different ways. I don't know.
It's interesting state for sure. There's a lot of choices and there's a lot of decisions being made. Just like the decision that we got that occurred because of what happened last week. So Raw opens up, we get a video recap package of the pre-tape show that was in. It feels like Crown Jewel was a world away, and it felt like months ago. Realistically, it was like less than a week ago. It was like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And the Raw from last week was pre-taped from Saudi Arabia. But we get the recap of the main event, in which we had a fatal 4-way to determine who would be going on to face Gunther for the championship, in which Bronson Reed destroyed everybody, except for Damian, which allowed Damian to pick up the win. And Damian Priest is our current #1 contender for Gunther's World Heavyweight Championship. And that's exactly how Monday Night Raw this week kicks off, because Damian Priest comes down to the ring to cut a promo. And, Gunther comes out. Gunther does not do any single talking, because Damian just takes the microphone and just runs Gunther down and basically gives us the everyday man promo, if you will. It's just like, I know what I can do. I know that I'm the best. Gunther, you're scared, yada, yada, yada. Which is a little bit more fiery than we've seen Damian be in the last couple of weeks. But Damian is interrupted by Ludwig Kaiser, who, of course, is Gunther's right-hand man. Ludwig runs down Damian verbally and basically states that Gunther is not afraid of Damian. And an interesting point is that, Gunther just takes the mic from Ludwig Kaiser and just like, with his hand, lowers it down, is like, no. Which allows Damian to hit Ludwig Kaiser and kick him out of the ring. And both the rest of Imperium walk up to the ring, with Kaiser not looking too confidently at Gunther in the way that Gunther is acting. And I'm just sitting here, I'm like, I'm a big Damian Priest fan. I love him to death. Got to support my fellow Puerto Rican. I'm very interested in the way that Gunther is being presented right now. I was just like, I guess losing to Cody at Crown Jewel is kind of putting doubts in your head, I guess, Gunther. I don't know. It's weird. But, I mean, I'm interested. I think the match at Survivor Series is going to be fun, because that's also a thing that got confirmed this episode, is that Gunther and Damian's championship match will be at Survivor Series next weekend.
Fun, yeah.
So, I thought this was a pretty decent promo. It definitely reminded me, be like, oh yeah, outside of the War Game matches, we actually have other matches that we got to build up for the pay-per-view. So, and I'm never going to say no to Gunther and Damian as wrestlers being on the pay-per-view. So I think this match is actually going to be a lot of fun. It's just the story build has been interesting, to say the least. But yeah, Nick, any thoughts about our opening segment?
So I actually kind of disagree. So like, I've always kind of crapped on Damian Priest for the last forever. I don't know if it's just, I just think he doesn't have much charisma. And to be honest, so I'm going to eat a little bit of crow, because I think this promo was actually probably one of the best promos I've seen him do, whether face or heel.
Oh, absolutely.
So he looked really, really good in this. And I get the whole Gunther aspect of it. I think it was bad booking. I guess if you're going to give this belt, the Crown Jewel title, to someone, you have to have a face for it, right? And that's why Cody got it, because he can do all the, press work that maybe, which I think Gunther could do it anyway, but I think they wanted a face champion for it. So but it was a bad decision. Gunther should have won it. He's been in ring the best performer for WWE. So he should have been, if you're making the Crown Jewel title as prestigious as it was supposed to be, he should have won that. So I think it was bad booking back at the pay-per-view. But
sure.
Yeah. So where it's at now, they've been teasing this Kaiser Gunther split forever. And I just worry that once that happens, Kaiser's screwed. Like, I don't think he's going to do anything. Like, he might disappear to the mid card for a little bit, but like, he's a good performer. But I worry that like if they do split up, if they do split up Imperium in that way, I think it hurts Kaiser and hurts them more than it helps them at this point. So I think it was good. I think Priest again looks as strong as he's ever been at this point. I still think when the match happens, Finn Balor is going to get involved in some form of fashion to keep that going, because the money match is still, and I would put it around the world title, is still Balor Priest. And you could still run that back. I don't care that he got the win at Bad Blood. Run that back, put the belt involved, and go from there. So I still think with that looming, I just worry because Gunther, like the whole gimmick, he was king of the ring, like he was so great, and he's the best in-ring performer. And now I worry that he could be dropping the belt in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's really interesting when it comes to all of this, because with the Terror Twins being separated when all that was said and done, Rhea still has a storyline where she's going after Liv, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then Damian kind of was just floating a little bit around, and now he's back into the picture with Gunther. So, I mean, that's a whole other conversation we can have. But again, as far as this segment goes, I am agreed that I'm a little worried that Gunther might potentially lose this title. I hope not. And I'm also like, will they or won't they just pull the trigger, either split the rest of Imperium separately or don't? But like, it's the same problem I have with some of the other promotions, right? With the will they, won't they split up like trope. I'm like, either do it or don't.
Well, yeah. And didn't they just bury Giovanni? Like once he split from Imperium? Like he had these cool Lamborghini promos and then had 2 goof matches. And then that was it.
Yet to see him.
Well, there's a rumor. Did you hear about that rumor as to why that happened?
No, what do you do?
So there is a rumor floating around that he was trying to get a little frisky with Tiffany Stratton.
There's also Luke, who is currently dating Ludwig Kaiser too. So,
yeah, they've been dating. Yeah, so there's some rumor that his push or whatever push he was going to get got buried because of
Ave Maria.
Allegedly,
that's unfortunate.
Allegedly. I mean, see, like I would so just to talk about that split, just to kind of harp on it, not to get you guys go, but like I want to see when Dragunov gets healthy, just put him with Imperium, like build it up, and then you have Dragunov right next to Gunther, and when you want to run that match back, it's right there.
Yeah.
Give me my 2 matches that I loved so much, like those 2 times they interacted and they fought for championships were amazing. So I loved it. But speaking of amazing things, backstage with Kathy Kelly in gorilla position, we have Io and Kyrie, who are about to head into the 6-woman tag team match, but they are down a person because they need to figure out who they're going to find to take on Pure Fusion Collective, aka Team Scissor Kick here on Raw. So
Scissor Kick much better. Anyway,
I do too. But in comes a clear Dakota Kai. Dakota Kai is back. She is back with the Damage Control. And that leads us into our first match of the evening, a 6-woman tag team match with Damage Control taking on Pure Fusion Collective in what seems to have been a feud that has been delayed due to a variety of things. But we're finally getting everything here. I thought it was nice to see Dakota Kai. As far as the match for itself, I thought it was pretty decent. Again, there's only so much you can do with everybody involved. Io and Kyrie continue to be amazing at what they do. I love the Sky Pirates. They've been holding it down since everybody's been injured. Damage Control picks up the victory. Woo. Hopefully that is it. We move on from this.
Good. I didn't see Raw, so I believe you.
No, I think it's a good spot to they're just trying to build up Io for this match. live.
Which
So
we'll get into spoilers later. I love the internet and hate the internet sometimes. But yes, I agree with you, Nick. This is definitely to build Io because she's been at the forefront over the last couple of months with a lot of things. I mean, when Damage Control earned their opportunity to face for the tag team championships, Io was the one that pinned Bianca, which was really cool to see because I'm like, oh my gosh, Bianca got pinned and she got pinned cleanly. It's crazy.
So not to derail this, but I will poll both of you, and I'm curious. So post WrestleMania, the Damage Control women, who do you think looked stronger or looked better between Io and Bayley?
I love Bayley to death, but I have to go with Io. Io has been presented stronger, not only on Raw, but she's also been fighting with Kyrie in tag team matches in NXT with the NXT girls too, and they've been doing phenomenal jobs. So I have to go with Io.
I would agree. I'm seeing a lot of Bayley on SmackDown. She's sort of been a character of herself, not the Bayley that we knew. And I get it because there's everything she's doing with Naomi and kind of the angles that have been from that. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure if Bayley needed a little bit of a break, so we haven't seen her in action, more promos the first half of the year, and then I was gone for 2.5 months. But I don't know. It just seems like Io has been working way more. Am I off thinking that? I've just seen more Io highlights and other things. Bayley's been out there, but more marquee, like big moments.
But on top of that, too, Io is also our current #1 contender for Liv's titles because she won that Battle Royale last week, too. So that match, well, okay. We'll talk about it when we get to the end of Raw because they did double taping for Raw and SmackDown.
Did you have an opinion of your own question, Nick?
I tend to agree, but I think like it's kind of like recency bias, though, because like she's just been named the #1 contender. So like, and you know, I can't remember what I did yesterday half the time. So like, I think to some extent, but Bayley's a bigger star, so she could put over someone like a Nia Jax. So I get why you would put her in that position. But yeah, Io's looked stronger, much stronger.
I think we're on the incline with Bayley too, and we'll talk about it when we get to SmackDown because now that we have the tournament for the first main roster mid-card women's title, which is the Women's United States Championship, I think we're going to see Bayley start slowly come back on the upcline with everything. And plus with this War Games match that's about to go down too, which is very interesting. We'll talk about it when we get there. But again, Damage Control picks up the victory. We love it. We love them. Next thing that we're going to talk about really quickly, and I'll put this in here because we see it throughout the night too. Sami Zayn and the Usos are trying to find a 5th person for their War Games team on this episode. Sami is now back with the Bloodline, though they are having problems of their own, which we'll talk more in depth at SmackDown. And the saddest Roman Reigns face I have ever seen at the end of SmackDown this week, which was juicy drama, but they are going around talking to everybody. So the Usos are trying to talk to people. At one point, Braun Breaker was considered, and I was like, Braun Breaker in War Games would be great. Though what went down on SmackDown, I think I know who our 5th member for Team Raw, for Roman's team is going to be, which is going to be interesting. Which we're going to talk about. That. You know what?
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. I promise. Wait, we'll talk about it because it's going to be an interesting thing. But people who are having trouble with other things, Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, are continuing to fight. They are still not on the greatest of terms, which leads to our second match of the evening. Kofi Kingston with Xavier Woods out on ringside, taking on Mr. Pete Dunne, aka Butch, as R-Truth is still continuing to call him, which is fantastic. Which, by the way, you weren't here, Professor, but when R-Truth slapped the dog taste out of Miz after being jumped by Miz a couple weeks ago, and then just having my favorite line is just like, be like, good luck with the Wyatts, you gonna die. R-Truth is a national treasure and protect him at all costs.
He also,
back to the match itself.
Mike, I don't know if we interrupted, but did you notice catch the I think Pete Dunne tweeted out that now R-Truth is messaging him on Twitter.
Yes, it's so good. And he's text messages.
Yeah, he's texting him, telling him that a guy named Butch is impersonating him. It's just great commitment. Because he does his Twitter game, his social media game is phenomenal. He really is he should be, honestly, I think, as we enter that season shortly, he's a guy who I think could be a Hall of Famer and should be probably.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, he's up there. I don't want to say 60, but he's up there. And he's been around forever, like doing this. I mean,
he was in name like 03 or something like that, which is crazy when you think about that. 20 years
quick. Way back then, yeah.
Nuts. Anyway, sorry about that.
It's all good. Honestly, that's more interesting because this match, it was just okay. I mean, Kofi and Peter Dune, if you will. I thought this was a pretty okay match. Again, I figured went in exactly the way that I did. Kofi looks like he's about to pull off the victory. Xavier pulls off a quasi distraction, which allows Dune to pick up the victory here. The winner by pinfall is Peter Dune, if you will. And then we end the match as, Xavier and Kofi are arguing as they walk up the ramp, continuing to further the descent. And then, of course, earlier in the day or earlier in the week, hours before SmackDown, one of these Raws is going to be dedicated to the New Day. And I was just like, and then the betrayal is about to happen on that episode.
Oh, man. It makes me sad, but they need something to do, right? They got to go somewhere. So, yeah.
Give Woods something. Woods deserves it.
Woods deserves
absolutely.
They made him King of the Ring once and then did nothing. It's like, come on. But
give him like a really good, honestly, give him like a heavy. Like, I wish he was in WWE. Like, Powerhouse Hobbs with him would have been like a perfect pairing, something like that.
Absolutely.
And it would just be, or, as much as, so unpopular opinion, I don't think he's going to succeed on the main roster because he's going to be booked poorly, but Oba Femi, something like that.
Yes.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Pair Oba Femi with a talker like Woods, and bam, off to the races. Actually, I could see that. I'm calling it now, Mikey. I'm calling it now. The 10th anniversary. Oba Femi shows up to help out Woods.
Yes, wow. I would love that. And that would be interesting if miraculously Biggie is cleared. Biggie versus Oba would be a match. Be like, oh. Anyways. So speaking of other factions and people having issues and potentially splitting, we're back at the Judgment Day Clubhouse. Yeah, Dominic and Finn are not getting along, you guys. And Finn is not having anything like Finn's in this really weird position right now because once Damian and Rhea got thrown out of the group, even though Judgment Day has no leaders, Finn has kind of like been on his own, and he's not having it with JD. He's not having it with Carlito, Liv, Raquel, Dominic. And Dominic and Finn kind of get into a verbal scuffle here where Balor isn't happy with the direction that everything is going because now that Damian Priest is back in the title picture, Finn's like, hey, we need to make sure he don't win. And Liv and everybody else is like, it's fine. What are you talking about? And Dominic kind of calls Finn out as like, dude, I've been doing more for the Judgment Day than you have. When was the last time you defended those tag team championships? And I'm like, you're not wrong, Dominic. We need, like, okay, this is a pet peeve. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent as it relates to this. We need to get these tag titles off of JD and Finn. Like, what's the point of them having it if they're not going to defend these things? And I'm like, the War Raiders have been waiting in the wings for like a month. Like, when are we getting that tag team championship match? I'm just saying.
Seriously, it should be. I mean, I really want to see. I worry that a couple things. So, and I'm going to give her credit. My wife thought about this, Nikki, a while ago, that it's going to be Finn with Liv ultimately, and that Dom's kind of being like a little bit of a, let's just say, even though his name's Dom, he's a sub. So,
I feel like we've said something similar in the past, but it's perfect. Yeah, keep going.
It's so ironic, but like I think that we're gonna find out later that basically like he was just basically getting foot. You know, perfect example. Saving Silverman. Do you remember that movie? I don't know if it's like the most. That's kind of what I envision. Like Dom is the Jason Biggs of this relationship, and we find out later that like Finn Balor comes in as the Steve Zahn, and he's like, I'm the hardcore guy that you need in your life. And all along, that this was them pulling the strings. The only thing that I worry about is that like then like it'll create some sympathy for Dom and potentially a reunion with Rhea down the line, which I think some people would be like, oh, storyline wise might look good, but
Sure.
Dom's so much better as a heel. He gets so much heat as a heel that I don't know if it would work out as well. But you could get that pop moment of them, you know, Dom and Rhea finally getting back together, you know, her forgiving him for all this garbage and like him realizing that, because when you notice it, a lot of Dom's storylines, everything with Dom is you're a child and you're being treated like a child, and everyone, whether it's Finn, Priest, Rhea, is just like you're Ray, his own, you know, like you're a child and you don't know. And even Ray, a couple months back when he confronted him, he's like, you know, you're just being manipulated like you always are. And maybe it's, you know, a coming of age story for him that they could be setting up that could actually turn him.
Yeah, and we've had, not to go down this rabbit hole, we've had theories on what the turn will be someday, and now that seems like the most likely. It used to be, you know, this father-son thing. It used to be this who am I in the face of whatever thing. There was a time where we were thinking, oh, will he be in charge of Judgment Day? And now it's come full circle to kind of this. Now this makes, what you just said makes way more sense. There's that,
Well,
if you eventually down the line, if there's that him and Rhea get, I don't want to say get back together because that just sounds icky, but if they're on the same page again, and then Finn gets isolated and has to create his own thing.
Mm-hmm. Mikey, what do you think, Mikey? Did I sell you?
Well, I am here for it. And I think that's something that I've wanted to see, especially for Dominic, given the fact that, you know, I would love, because again, he is being presented, you're a child, you can't do this. And so inevitably, when JD and Finn lose those tag titles, I would love for Don to be like, no, you know what? I don't need this. I don't need you. I have proven to myself I can do this. And you know what? I'm going to go and strike out on my own. If you want to come with me, cool. If not, bye. Deuces. Check the deuces and leave. Like, I think at this point, and I don't want to, I think the term outgrown is overused when it comes to wrestling, you know, and factions. But I think Dominic is up to the point where I think we've gotten him to where he needs to be in this current chapter of his career, in this character. Sure. Now I'm ready to see Dom kind of strike out on his own, fight people in the mid card for a bit. Who knows? Become Intercontinental Champion or whatever.
We were talking about this a year ago. We were like, Judgment Day kind of pseudo ran its course. It's holding them back in a way. They've done a great job pivoting, and Liv Morgan and everything else. I agree. I don't want to say outgrown because that's not what I mean, because Dom as a heel is fantastic, and his just everyone wants to destroy him and won't let him talk, and it's beautiful, and I hope that goes forever. But if they can play this right, they could have one of the best turns ever. It's just, how do you do that? We'll see.
And you could also, I mean, not that you're like doing this for any particular reason, but I'm sure he's got a shorter term contract, but Carlito, you could keep him relevant on the main roster for a little bit longer if you pair him with Dom. So, you know, he doesn't have much shelf life left, but why not? I'm sure he signed a 1 to 3 year deal max.
Dude got to come back at the age he's at and the shape he's in and make money a few years before retiring a second time. That's a beautiful story. All the money. That's fantastic, Carly.
Oh, absolutely. But speaking of fantastic things, I still think that Bronson needs a solid win to keep the momentum going. He needs a signature win, but Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins brawling again in the ring. Security trying to pull them apart. For anybody that watched Crown Jewel knows that Bronson Reed lost to Seth Rollins at Crown Jewel, but like no sold pretty much everything that Seth was throwing at him. And Seth, literally, you heard him caught on camera in character, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, wow. So these two are fighting. This will not be the last time we see Bronson Reed in WWE this week, but I love me a good pull apart brawl. Bronson needs a definitive win to keep his momentum going, because right now he's been seen as the monster, but Seth has been beating him at all the matches they've had so far. So I think it's time for Bronson to get a win, and I think he's going to get that at Survivor Series. Just putting it out there. Yeah. Stay tuned for more.
We'll find out.
I just don't get as excited about these after, again, call it what you will, like 90s wrestling booking, but like after he's had these, but he's had these with like Braun Strowman, So, like, a pull-apart brawl with Seth Rollins, as great as Seth Rollins is, doesn't do anything for me when you've been put through a wall by Braun Strowman, and, like, you can't keep topping it. You put him on a car, like the tsunami on the car. So, like, he should have built up to the bigger guys, right? Like, there's no one really bigger than Braun Strowman now on the roster, I don't think, size-wise. So now, to me, I get a little diluted from some of this stuff.
I think this is a case of let's try to figure something else out because I think Braun is out injured again. So, which is crazy to say.
Put him back with
but
the Wyatts.
Yeah. Or, whenever she's ready, like figure out something for Braun and Alexa Bliss to do something whenever Alexa's ready to come back. So we'll see when that all happens. But we get into our next match, Damian versus Ludwig. We're going to be all the way 100% honest here. There was never a doubt in my mind that Damian was not winning this match, and he does win this match. But it was a fun match. I think Ludwig is a solid in-ring performer. Damian Priest picks up the victory here. Gunther is watching on, and, it continues to build for what we're getting at Survivor Series. Nothing more to say with that.
Agreed.
Poor Braun Breaker. I guess your tanning person was just off this week or the machine broke because, sir, this is the most off-colored I have seen you since being on my television screen. I'm like, Braun Breaker, what happened?
I didn't even watch Raw. He showed up on the commercial on Smackdown for the tag team belts, and the picture got messed up on my screen. Like I saw it trying to fix itself based on the rest of the picture-in-picture. It's like, what in the hell?
He's gonna change his name to Tan Breaker.
He's got to be aware, right? He's got to know that the whole universe is going, what in the
It's crazy to me that we had a tournament to figure out a number one contender for Braun to face, and that was Jay. And then because Bloodline got involved, now Jay has got into the Bloodline. Braun's been kind of sitting on the sidelines for a little bit. He's interviewed backstage where he talks about expanding his belt collection and that maybe he should be the speed champion. And I'm just sitting here. Don't put Braun Breaker for the speed champion. What, Chip? What are you doing? He's the Intercontinental champion. You mean to tell me we can't have nothing for him to do? But of course, Sheamus walks up and we're teasing Sheamus versus Braun because Sheamus needs that Intercontinental championship to round out his collection of his career because that is the only belt that Sheamus has yet to win.
Sure.
So,
I think also he's stuck in a pickle because LA Knight is doing so well with the USA title and making that a thing that now some of the focus is shifted.
Right.
Which is an unpopular opinion because there's still folks polarized about that title and how that shit gets handled. But I think that the way that's going, you running into, you have two mid-card belts. One's, what do you do with them? I don't know. I get it. This jigsaw puzzle with belts and how things go starts to drive me crazy. As long as we're not going back to like European title, Canadian title, this and that title, hardcore title too, madness.
It's don't did Tony Khan like sneak into WWE and get like a couple?
No, don't do it. Don't do it.
Belt. Everyone gets a belt. It's the Oprah free belt giveaway.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
It is wild for sure. This interview ends with Jimmy needing to talk to Braun, teasing that Braun Breaker as fifth member of Team OTC Bloodline, which, spoiler alert, is probably not going to be the case, but we'll get there when we get there. Next was a really interesting segment. The Miz got, returned by the Wyatts. He's no longer kidnapped by them. By the way, Karrion Kross's social media video with Scarlett of needing to go find Miz was fucking hilarious because he was funny. Give me this Karrion Kross on television. Let him be menacing, but also let him be just dry humor funny. It is fantastic. Scarlett's like, Miz has been kidnapped. We need to go get him. Well, it's been about 10 minutes since the show ended, so he's probably dead by now. I need this Karrion Kross more, but Miz has been returned. The Final Testament still are looking for vengeance for Paul Ellering because the Wyatt Six took him out. So Miz goes out to the ring in order to act as bait for the Wyatt Six. The Wyatts come out and we get into a brawl with the Final Testament standing tall over the Wyatt Six, which is an interesting direction. I would not be surprised if we get Wyatt 6 versus Final Testament at Survivor Series. Not in a War Games match, but just give me a no DQ street fight, something type of match. Like, this requires us to have some sort of gimmick for this. But I thought this was a really fun and strong segment. Miz is now finally a part of the Final Testament, if you will. And they got the better of the Wyatt 6 by being a little bit smarter than them. And so I am looking forward to this match. But because of this, I'm still hoping that now we can get the Final Testament to finally separate themselves from the everything else of being in the void that is the mid card of not doing anything right now. But they just kind of been existing. And I'm hoping, I want this to succeed. I am like one of the 5 people that want to see Karrion Kross succeed on this roster. So I'm hoping that this first step has me intrigued, and hopefully we'll get there when we get there. But I want this to succeed really badly. And I actually don't mind the Wyatts kind of getting taken down a peg a little bit too, because they've been winning all the 2 feuds that they've had. So now we need to create some opposition for them. So I don't know. Gentlemen, thoughts on Miz teaming up with Final Testament and going to war with the Wyatt 6?
Having not seen it or following it, you just saying that out loud cooks my brain a little bit. Wait, the Miz, what? So I would have to wrap my brain around that at some point. More Wyatt 6. I know they were getting used a lot and then kind of disappeared, is my understanding of the last 2 months or so. Anything that's involving them more is fantastic as well. We've been calling for more dry humor Karrion Kross stuff, right? Like, because we know he has it and they just kind of don't want him to do it. I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm going to say this. I was going to save this for the end. I kind of want to watch some of Raw now, which is something I've not said in a long time. Like, there's some interesting things happening over there that I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I need to just check on that just to know where everything else is going. But it's intriguing.
I think the 2 hours has also helped it kind of trim down on, like, let's just focus on the important stories, or at least stories, and not just put stuff there. So I found it interesting. Nick, any thoughts about Final Testament versus Wyatt 6?
I hope that so I love everything to do with the Wyatts. So this is very old school Wyatt, like the Bray Wyatt, like, even when he gets his ass kicked, he laughs it off, and like it's part of the bigger plan. It's almost it's a Heath Ledger Joker kind of mentality of the presentation, I should say. So I like that. That being said, I do want to hope that they follow up more of it. Like, first off, if this was part of Miz's plan to get abducted, like, I want to hear, like, how did he know that this was gonna be a whole setup, right? Like, is this their revenge? Because, like, yeah, putting them down once, like, at the end, they don't look like they get over. So, like, I want to see them do a little bit more with creating some opposition. Because, like, we've seen it before where Bo Dallas, he's gotten his ass kicked. So now, how are you going to build up Final Testament stronger than what it is? I think ultimately the big opposition, that the group that's going to oppose them at probably WrestleMania, I think is going to be Judgment Day. So, like, this seems like just kind of a mix. And, like, I kind of was hoping that, like, maybe they would give more of this opposition to an American Made, because they just made that group, and now Final Testament's getting it. But, again, I like this group. I hope that they get some sort of push, but it feels like it's just kind of an interim, like, where it's headed, and they're not going to get much of a build-up. I want to know why, like, okay, this is part of Miz's master plan. Like, how was this set up like this? Like, he knew that because he's been abducted before, right? Like, in kayfabe, he's been abducted by Bray Wyatt's group before, so he knew what their playbook was, something like that. I knew it was going to happen.
That would be a really fun story bit for there. Be like, I kind of know how this game works. I've been against the Wyatts before. And so even though it's a different coat of paint, the playbook is still kind of the same, which I would love that, Nick. Now I'm going to be upset if that's not the case now. Thanks a lot. Just kidding. But we get our bumpers for next week. Seth Rollins will be taking on Bronson Reed, and we have an Intercontinental Championship match between Braun Breaker and Sheamus. which means we are finally here at our main event. And wow, crazy. A women's match in the main event? Color me surprised. I'm not going to lie. Wrestling this week has made me super happy because I think almost every single promotion that we cover here this week, main event was a women's match. Oh, actually, no, not Dynamite. Collision did better because we had Mariah May versus Anna Jay in a no DQ match for that championship, and that match slapped. But in the main event, it is a WWE Women's Tag Team Championship match. We have 2/3 of Black Girl Magic, Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill taking on the team of Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. This was a fun match. I'm not going to lie. I thought shenanigans were going to go down. And once again, our poor girls would get a no contest via interference. But no, Bianca and Jade win by pinning and hitting the KO for Bianca to hit the KOD on Liv and pinning her for the win. So Liv gets pinned in this match. Jade and Bianca are the winners. I thought the match was fun for what it was. There was a brief moment I was worried. I was like, please don't take these titles away from Bianca and Jade, because I think that they're actually putting in work with these tag team championships. So don't take them off them. Glad they didn't. But Jade and Bianca don't get to celebrate for too long because Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton make their way into and attack Jade and Bianca. Liv and Raquel join in. So it's a 2-on-4. Io randomly comes out by herself to kind of help out because there is history between Bianca and Io. And then we get a wild Naomi sighting to even the odds too. So the faces stand tall for Monday Night Raw to go off the end as Naomi, Io, Jade, and Bianca are celebrating in the ring over the heels of Liv, Raquel, Nia, and Tiffany. So that was Monday Night Raw this week. Overall, I thought it was a pretty fun show. We are building to Survivor Series. Now we're going to get into the spoilers. So, if it wasn't already apparent by the end of this episode of Raw, of what happened in the main event, we pretty much got our Women's War Games match right there. And you can make an argument as to how these women got picked. But on the internet, they did do a double taping of Raw. So each team's fifth member was revealed for the women. So we have that all set, and we will find all that about it this tomorrow night on Monday Night Raw, because it's the pre-recorded they did the double taping of earlier this week. So if you've been on the internet, you know who the teams are. I will not be spoiling it on air, but I'm going to put in the private chat for our co-hosts if they haven't figured that out yet.
Oh, yeah, I kind of want to know.
Okay, I'm going to put it in the private chat.
I'm intrigued.
I'm going to put it in the private chat in a sec. But we're going to move on from Monday Night Raw into Friday Night Smackdown. Because now we're going to move into, just to kind of clear the air a little bit. I honestly liked SmackDown this week. We got more stuff. We got a double turn ? In our tag team championship match, which is very interesting, which we'll talk about there in a hot second. But let us begin, because Friday Night Smackdown, we open up the show. We get a recap of what went down with Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. Randy Orton having to be taken away in ambulance last week because Kevin Owens hitting a pile driver, which has been banned in WWE for a hot minute, which is now bringing it back. And coming down to the ring, we have the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, who wants Kevin Owens right now. Nick Aldis comes out, says, no, I can't do that for you. Cody runs down the history between him and Randy being a mentor to Cody and also being a friend of the family to his father and their dads being friends, all that history of the families together, from back in the day to where we currently are. And lest we forget too, Cody Rhodes was also under the tutelage of Randy Orton in that faction way back in the early 2000s, if you will. And so this is personal for Cody. He wants to fight Kevin Owens. Nick Aldis has banned Kevin Owens from this. And Cody kind of gives Nick Aldis the ultimatum. Either you give me that match or I'm going to find Kevin myself and we're just going to fight regardless. It's like, I don't need this ring to get my point across as he leaves. And I'm just like, make this a no DQ match at Survivor Series. Like, let this. So I've also heard reports that we're going to be extending this. According to the reports, WWE may not even have this championship match at Survivor Series, but they want this to be at the Saturday night main event show in December. Please let them fight in some capacity at Survivor Series and then up the ante at Saturday night main event. But yeah, Cody is done being nice and he wants to fight Kevin Owens right here and right now. So Cody is now on the hunt.
I did not dislike this promo at the top. I had a little bit of a recap going in, so I wasn't totally oblivious to this. Cody, not to go full acting teacher either. I think Cody kind of forced a chunk of this promo, which he tends to do when he has to be angry Cody. He tends to do a little bit harder than he needs to instead of sort of sitting there and breathing and being in the moment and all that other stuff. Of course, Wade comes out and is remarkably smooth on the mic and talks him down and all that makes sense. I wanted a little more from this. And actually, I thought the better promo, we'll get to it, was cut in someone's car directly in response to this, calling out the fact that Cody gets everything that Cody wants for and Cody gets, building up more of this Cody as the golden boy, Cody gets everything Cody wants thing, which now I don't know if this is true or not. I think that could easily be the crack that leads towards the eventual turn of Cody Rhodes. Sort of, you get everything you want. And he's not an ego guy, so you're not going to get that kind of thing. But sort of, why does this company guy always get all these things? I don't dislike. I think it's funny that I know the pile driver is a banned move because of, Austin and other folks, and I get it. People who've gotten seriously hurt doing that. The one Kevin Owens did was actually looked remarkably safe because they knew what they were doing. So anyone watching was like, oh, he's probably fine, but I get the kayfabe of the thing. This promo kind of lost its momentum near the end and sort of we're building. And it was sort of like, okay, you want it. Okay, great. And then it was over. Like, okay. I'm still intrigued. I'm still interested. Kind of a rough start, at least for me.
Yeah. Nick, any additional thoughts to the Cody Rhodes opening promo?
I think it's classic. I mean, he's got the history, like, because of his name, he's got the history for everything. That he could just put a little steam on it with his name and make it sound good. I just think there's a big miss because the idea behind the pay-per-view is the theme itself should be Survivor Series. And you have War Games. And I think it's a great opportunity to make a triple threat right here between KO, Randy Orton,
sure,
and Cody Rhodes. And the whole theme of Survivor Series is like, it's not every match basically is a one-on-one, right? Like you have War Games, you'll have a triple threat. You could have done. I would have loved to see a fatal four-way for the women's SmackDown or whatever. SmackDown was WWE. I was confused. The SmackDown Women's Championship, right, with Tiffany Stratton and that group. Mm-hmm. You could have done that. Like, so I just think it was a miss on that end. Like, I get it, but it just seems like another one of the, like, KO is he's a reliable veteran. You put him in this match, he's just like a transitional main event match for everybody. Sure. And it's gonna be good, but kind of like he's in the same vein of slightly below like AJ Styles, I would say. Like, you're gonna get a good month. Like, if you want to do a 1 month build up, you could just get a good performance out of it. And that's kind of what I feel. And I just feel like it's a miss. Survivor Series is it's a big four PLE, PPV, whatever you're calling it. And you could just keep with that theme and have Randy Orton in this match. And maybe he still shows up and does something, but like, sure. To me, it was kind of a miss, but
yeah, I've heard folks on the internet, which I try not to give value to the internet, saying something similar, where it's sort of like, this, if you have these 4 or 5 PLEs throughout the year, this theme, that theme, this thing, that thing, keep them siloed enough to where I know, oh, this is going to have this. Don't just make this like we were talking earlier, right? Don't make it just every other PLE pay-per-view, right? Make it something special. You already got War Games there. You got the triple threats there. You have a reason for, people to cash in and big groups of 4 or 5, whatever. I agree. I think if they just go full Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, it just feels out of place, right? It doesn't have the emphasis that I probably should.
Right. And I wouldn't no, mad is not the term. I would be more interested to it if this was like Cody versus KO for this championship. If this was like the first time that we're going to get it. I was like, okay, heel Kevin versus face Cody could be fun. The problem is we already had this type of situation happen because KO and Cody fought at Bash in Berlin not too long ago in August. I'm like, we already had them face each other.
Yeah.
Which is, now is showing the problem that SmackDown is having right now with Cody as champion. There's only a few folks who are being built up to face Cody in all of this because we're waiting for whatever else to kind of make that Cody story leading into WrestleMania, so to speak. And it kind of does a disservice to everybody. Randy and KO are going to be in that picture scene, but then that's it. Like nobody else.
Yeah.
Cody being so tied in with the bloodline for as long as he did with all of those matches and all that little chapters in the story, I feel like also kind of took away and be like, we have a whole other roster. We haven't really built anybody else up. So we'll find a way to make Randy and KO as our, but with Randy being hurt now, you're setting up KO versus Cody, which is cool and everything. I think the match is still going to be fun, but we're in the middle of the filler season, the filler arc, if you will, if we were going to compare this to an anime, and we're waiting for the next like major arc of the story to be told. So
yeah, but you have an opportunity here to use to not do filler. You have a chance here to get Survivor Series cooking like they've done in the past, and where I'm really paying attention by the time we get to the new year. They're pumping the brakes here, and I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe Raw's building towards something. Maybe some of the stuff we'll talk about that happens 45 minutes from now, maybe that builds to it. But I don't know. It's I agree with Nick. It's sort of you're slowing this down, and we've seen this before. Where are we going?
It's interesting to say the least, but we move on from this because earlier in the day and also on SmackDown, we were given the brackets because last week Nick Aldis announced that we have a Women's United States Championship. It's about flipping time. We get a mid-card title on the main roster because NXT has had their North American Women's Championship since May, so they did it first. Now we have the United States on SmackDown, which means to tell me by the end of 2025, I'm pretty sure Raw is going to announce a Women's Intercontinental Championship, which I'm excited for that. But we are getting a series of 4 triple threat qualifying matches, which then leads into the semifinal matches where it's 1-on-1. And then the finals will be held at Saturday night main event in December. So we get our first qualifying match this evening in which we see Bayley taking on Candice LeRae and B-Fab of all people too. I don't care what nobody says. B-Fab's my girl. I love her so much, And I thought she still has a lot of work to do. And of course, Candice and Bayley had to slow it down at parts. But I was super excited that B-Fab got a chance to wrestle in the way that she did. Ultimately, Bayley does pick up the victory here. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about during Raw. It seems with Bayley winning, we are inching her continuing to still have an upward momentum. I would not be surprised if we found Bayley into the finals of this championship. And again, that's one name that a lot of people are saying that should be the first Women's United States Championship to continue to have Bayley build that legacy. Other names on that list is Chelsea Green would be a really fun champion.
Sure.
Mia Yim has also been a name that people would love to see. And granted, spoiler alert, based on what happened at the end in our main event too, people really also want to see Naomi get another championship run, whatever that is. I still want Naomi to have a main championship run because the last ones that she got to have, she had to vacate the title because she was injured, which broke my little heart when she was a singles champ. And that was when we had the SmackDown women's title. So that was years ago. But the match itself, I thought it was a lot of fun. Bayley picks up the victory here. B-Fab, I thought, looked great. This was a fun triple threat to open the show.
This was fun,
And this tournament is giving opportunities to the SmackDown women's division. And it's interesting to see some of the women that we hardly get to see wrestle are about to participate. Like B-Fab's in this one. Elektra Lopez is about to wrestle too, and one of the qualifying matches. So I thought this was a fun way, and Bayley picks up a big win to, advance in the tournament.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say predictable. You kind of feel like, oh, Bayley's going to get the push here, like we were talking about building that momentum. I thought B-Fab and Lorraine looked great. This was fun. I know B-Fab is working on whatever, but she was never misplaced. She wasn't behind anything. There were one or two moments that they sort of called the spot and reminded her, and she got there quickly. Like nothing was clunky or weird. Like this was great. I almost feel like this should have started the show and then go into the promo because the amount of momentum they lost in that promo to start this normally kills women's matches. We've talked about this at length too. You set them up to fail. This one didn't. This one was great.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's interesting because this felt to me very, very much. Now I get your point, Mikey. We're like giving more opportunities to folks with the mid card titles now going to be around, but I get the feeling with the main event coming, without spoiling anything. But with the main event coming, this is B-Fab's audition of like sink or swim now. Like you either got to perform and that's it. And again, she did well, but to the same extent, you put her in there with two great veterans. Like so right. If you're not going to look well in that match, you're not going to look well at all, and you might as well move on. I would be interested to see where it goes. When you talk about who should be the champion, the first mid-card U.S. women's champion, I get the feeling that like it should be someone. I'm kind of like, I don't want to say a purist in the sense, but a purist in the sense that like it should be someone who could be viewed as like a genuine mid-carder, like a career mid-carder that really should be rewarded as the inaugural women's U.S. women's champ. And I think Naomi is the perfect example for that because of the fact that like I never see her, and maybe it's an unpopular opinion or whatever, I don't see her as like a women's champion, like a main eventer. Sure. But I see her as a perfect mid-card talent that this is what you're promoting, give her this opportunity and put her in the mid-card and give her the mid-card title. So I see her potentially being that. To me, that's or someone in that vein should win this.
Well, it's tough looking at the bracket. Jade mentioned Piper Niven, Naomi, Tiffany Stratton, Elektra Lopez, Bianca Belair, Chelsea, and Blair Davenport. Like you can see the easy path, right? You could see all the main card. Oh, it's going to be these four because it's always these four. You can play the upsets, right? You could have a Tiffany, which is funny that that's an upset if I'm saying that right, right? Or a Piper and go, oh, hey, that just happened, and then you have something to do with that.
Well, is Tiffany an upset though? Like, because Tiffany, to me, it reminds me so much of years back when Rollins had the U.S. title and the Money in the Bank. Like, hey, let her hold the U.S. Women's title and the Money in the Bank for a little bit longer until we're ready to pull the trigger. So she could be, and I'd be okay with that because she's going to be a megastar, I think.
Oh yeah,
in WWE. Yeah. So like, if you want to put some prestige on the title for the first mid card title, I really hope they don't do an Intercontinental Women's title because I just think it's too many. Like, let it build up as just like maybe the mid card title could be something that can cross brands. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Sure.
No.
All I will say is I am happy that we do have a mid-card women's title too, because I think it was long overdue for the main roster. But speaking of mid-card titles, we are still talking about them, but this time we go over to the men's side of things. LA Knight comes out to cut a promo, and then he is interrupted with Legado del Fantasma. And immediately, I kid you not, boys, I almost shut off my television screen. I was like, don't run this back again. I love Legado. I love Santos. Santos was my dude in NXT, but we have yet to do anything of significance with him and this, faction of folks that we have with him.
Have there been
But-
more
What's the-
back garden? Have there been
Like-
more backroom Olive Garden promos? Have I missed any of those?
No,
Damn, those are the
unfortunately.
good ones. Ah,
Wait, what's that Albert Einstein quote? You're both teachers. What's the definition of insanity? Is
insanity is doing the same thing over and over
Yeah,
and
the
expecting the same.
yep.
result. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, booking the same thing over and over and expecting it to get over.
So, but thankfully that was not the case because after LA Knight verbally burying Legato, I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, it's a wrap, folks. That's about it. LA Knight said, I will give an opportunity to somebody in Legato, but it's not you, Santos. It's going to be you. And we get a open challenge for the United States Championship. LA Knight defending against Berto of all people. Listen, I will unapologetically love Humberto Carrillo. I feel like we have yet to do anything of significance with him since he joined the company as well. But I was reminded, I was like, this is why I love Berto. He's actually really good in the ring.
He's really
Am I the
good.
only person that gets like? Do you remember like TNA, like the Wolves, or well, but the Wolves? What's it? The Eddie Edwards and
Eddie- Yeah, I know who
Oh,
you're talking
okay.
about. Yeah,
Sure,
Eddie
yeah.
Edwards and Davey, not
When-
Davey Boy Smith.
Davey Richards. Davey Richards.
Yeah, Davey Richards.
So when I see Humberto, like with the claws that he paints on his chest or whatever it is, I don't know. That's what I think about. I think about the Wolves. I don't know why. I look at the pictures, like, oh, the Wolves.
I thought
But
it was
it's-
great. I thought he did some beautiful selling here. He sold that getting caught by LA Knight's foot beautifully. There's some of the top rope stuff he did here that was a lot of fun. You're right. I haven't seen a lot of them. We had him as a tag team for a while doing things, and then they just stopped and then started pushing Santos instead.
the other,
Go
the
ahead.
other thing that, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I didn't have anything. No, it's fine.
It's like, you know what I think is really neat? Like, I don't know, it may be stupid to me, but like LA Knight's elbow drop. I find that really, I don't know, maybe it's not really that impressive, but like to jump up and then back, it seems like up and backwards how he does it
Mhm.
is I don't know if maybe it takes a lot of coordination or not, but like it seems like it's really coordinated because like to me that seems like a kind of like, you know, like one of those type deals.
Because he's jumping, right? He's just the elbow, and then his body's going around it, right? As he's doing.
Well, no. I'm talking about just the springboard action because he goes from the
that's
mid-row.
ridiculous hard. Yeah.
Yeah, like he jumps
Because
up
we've
vertically.
seen him a few
back,
times
and then
slip when he
goes.
does that.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
It's pretty cool. Like, I don't know. I just find that like it's just at the end of the day, it's just an elbow drop. It's a neat take on it. But I don't know if it's like super athletic or like I think it's kind of impressive, but I don't know that it's super impressive or not. But it's just a weird little nuance that makes it, again, it sets up his finisher, so it looks really nice.
Yeah.
Exactly. This was a fun, title defense. LA Knight does beat Berto. LA Knight is celebrating the ring. And then it is short-lived, though, because he gets attacked by Donnie Darko himself, Shinsuke Nakamura. See, okay, so Shinsuke, beats down on LA Knight, hits a Kinshasa, rolls out of the ring and leaves. LA Knight is still down as this segment goes off the air.
Listen, it was Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
Anakin Skywalker.
Exactly.
You were supposed to be the new.
You are the one.
So
I hate you.
I'm conflicted about this. On the one hand, I am probably one of the biggest fans of Shinsuke Nakamura. That name is synonymous with strong style wrestling in Japan, and it will always be that way for me. I am so happy he is back. On the other hand, I do not trust WWE to do right by my boy Shinsuke after every other iteration of what we were going to give him has started and stopped. I thought we were getting somewhere when Shinsuke was this ultimate anime villain when he was narrating stories.
Man,
And he and Cody were going up against each other.
and they
like,
got
that
away
was
from
fun.
that so quickly, and that's a
I was
huge
so mad.
mistake.
Yeah, that was a great version of him. Honestly, I hope this character has the poison mist.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm like, Muda gave him the blessing. Let him do it. There are only 4 wrestlers right now who are doing the Mist that have gotten the blessing from the great Muda himself, and that is Muda's daughter herself, because she uses it in Japan. MLW's Ikuru Kwan has the Mist in his repertoire, and he's gotten the blessing for that. Asuka has gotten the blessing to use the Mist, and Shinsuke is the fourth one. Asuka does it all the time. Let Shinsuke use the Mist. He has already gotten blessing from Great Muda. Let this version of Shinsuke Nakamura use it, because that is something I feel like WWE is missing in terms of like not enhancement, kind of like tools and everything, but it adds an extra layer when it comes to these matches. So I'm like, I want this Shinsuke to work out so well, but WWE has not done right by my boy. I am a little worried that they're not going to do right by him. I want them to prove me wrong, is what I'm saying.
Sure.
I am happy to see Shinsuke.
Well, the mid card needs it. The mid card needs Shinsuke and someone like that, especially on SmackDown. So, like, I think this will be finally at least a decent feud that we could say, all right, you know, like Carmelo and Andrade could have been their own feuds with LA Knight themselves, but they just
I'm still here.
Yeah, and then, you know, we had that blow off at the triple threat at Crown Jewel, which I didn't watch it, but by the internet standards, it seemed that match was probably the favorite of most people outside of everything that we got at Crown Jewel. But yeah, now that LA has beaten Melo and Andrade, that finisher from the highlights looked really cool, though. Yeah. And so it seems that we're done with Andrade and Melo for a little bit in the mid card. Santos and LA already had their thing. He beat Berto. So yeah, you're right, Nick. I really hope that this is gonna. I'm hoping that this feud ends up being really good for both LA and Shinsuke, because yeah, since LA has kind of taken care of pretty much the majority of our mid card in the men's division, like Shinsuke coming back definitely makes sense. I just need WWE to do right by my boy.
yeah, just carry him along, because I think LA Knight's probably carrying this till close to WrestleMania, if not beyond. So who's the big challenger they're going to build up to WrestleMania? So you need some transitional opponents. Shinsuke is a great one. Maybe it's AJ Styles if he comes back healthy. I don't know how long AJ's still out for, but like, this is a perfect transition. Give it a couple of months, like give it till Royal Rumble at the least. You know, let Shinsuke get over on him a little bit, and maybe he doesn't. You know, I don't think he takes the belt off him, but at least built him up as a credible challenger. It'll allow a little bit more for LA Knight in this reign to get a little bit more credibility goes toward whoever that opponent is.
Oh, absolutely. So we move on from this, we get into the middle of the show at this point, because Jimmy J and Sammy are still trying to figure out who they gonna get for this final member. Roman Reigns summons them to the chambers, that is the, you know, locker room, so to speak. And as they're discussing, Sammy's like, hey man, I think it's time. We need to make the call. And before Roman can answer to that, Solo Sikoa's music hits. We go back to ringside. Solo, the Gorillas of Destiny, and the Samoan Werewolf himself, Jacob Fatu, are in the ring. They are cutting this promo. It doesn't go on for very long, because then Roman Reigns' music hits, and basically we just get into this brawl. Roman Reigns is fighting everyone. The Usos come out. Sammy comes out. We get a 4-on-4 match. Everybody is fighting. Bronson Reed shows up and aligns himself with Solo Sikoa. So Bronson Reed is the 5th member for the Wish version of the Bloodline. So we have the 5th member for Solo's team, and we are still trying to figure out the 5th member of Team Roman. At this point, I'm going to spoil it, because I'm pretty sure I know where we're going with this, and this is really not a spoiler, and we pretty much got confirmation of Roman's 5th member. So in the men's War Games match, it is going to be Bloodline Civil War. It is Solo Sikoa, the Gorillas of Destiny, Jacob Fatu, and Big Bronson Reed taking on the team of Roman Reigns, Jimmy and Jay Uso, Sami Zayn, and Seth freaking Rollins. That has been the name that everything said, even though Seth said he never is going to work with Roman ever again, because Bronson is involved and something's probably going to go down tomorrow night on Monday Night Raw. is going to force Roman and Seth to be on the same page. Now, with that being said, I have a further prediction, which I will dive more into it next week's episode as we do our predictions for Survivor Series. I think Roman and Seth not being on the same page, I think Solo and the team are winning Survivor Series. I think Roman's losing at Survivor Series.
I mean, that makes sense. I don't think you're not gonna end the year on a happy note because you want me to watch 6 weeks from now, right? Going into WrestleMania season. I don't know. I think I don't want to say I'm disappointed at Seth Rollins. It's just, you can see it coming, right? I wish there was a little more of a curveball that they could throw in there. I'm not saying go get The Rock, but I wish there was another pivot they could make where all of a sudden you go, oh my God, I didn't think of that. And then I'm really intrigued. Nothing wrong, nothing against Seth Rollins, if you know what I mean. It's a little too close to the formula, if that makes sense, but I'm not against it. I'm just, I wonder if there was more of a wow factor you could have pulled, but I don't know.
Both of these, like Sami Zayn and Seth Rollins were way too fast to forgive everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could have built this up from SummerSlam on, and give it a month and a half for Sami, give it a month and a half for Rollins, and then do it. Okay, all this crap has happened. The other thing I'm curious about is, at the end, he says, Cole's like, the bloodline's unstoppable, right? They're becoming unstoppable, Big Bronson Reed. He wears all black, which I guess most wrestlers do now anyway. But he throws up the ones with him. And I'm like, I don't think this is true, but like the way that Cole was talking was like, and maybe he just meant it as like, it's for War Games. He's aligned himself, but like, is he in the bloodline? Like, it's just like kind of like a weird way. Like,
I need an explanation of how we recruited Bronson Reed into this. This makes no sense.
They're going to find out he's a 4th or 5th cousin or some weird thing. And be like, oh yeah, that one. Oh, okay, great.
Well, the other thing is I think, sorry to cut you off, Mikey, but I just like the other component of this is I get the feeling that Hikuleo Tall Tonga is not ready for the main roster yet. And that's a wrinkle in this whole storyline. And this is more as I think about this. It makes sense if you want to keep it going to, it's like Marvel phase 3 of this, right? Post WrestleMania, right? I could totally see the next wrinkle. Who's the most over guy in this whole storyline right now? It's probably Jacob Fatu.
Yep, I was going to say Jacob.
That man, every time he does a flip or something off the top rope, he goes farther than he needs to. He's so good.
So he's getting a pop now from the crowd. So he could be getting a face turn just organically, whether he wants to or not, because he's so good after WrestleMania. And I could see an iteration of this where like Solo is so insecure because of Jacob now that he brings in Hikuleo as his new enforcer, because I don't think you can't have 2 enforcers. You only have 1. So like Jacob, and like same thing, like even if I don't think he's in the building, but if Bronson was there, you have 2 big enforcers. Like you have 1 guy that's a bodyguard. You always do it. You never have 2 bodyguards unless it's a tag team, like an AOP type security.
I was gonna say, yeah. I don't know. The rumor was there were like 3 or 4 cousins that were all getting signed and pulled and talked to and contracts and other things.
Yeah, because NXT has signed Hikuleo, and they've also just recently signed Lance Anoa'i too. And then of course, I don't know if it would be a one-time thing, but we also brought up the fact that maybe we get a one-time appearance or one and done from Mr. Zilla Fatu as well.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound disrespectful, and this isn't what I mean, and I'm just some bald dude sitting in my house. But Tama Tonga's struggled. He has. He struggled in this spot too. He missed a handful of cues here, and Roman had to tell him, hey, this, and kind of get him on there once the camera got on him. So he's had a rough go the last, year, I guess, just over a year since his
a little less than that.
Listen here, he's just had a hard time with cues and keeping up and pace and stuff. In the ring is great when it's him and Tongaloa, they're doing fine. But he's in his head, like he's really having a hard time. So I wonder, I don't know, this is me spinning the wheels. They don't want to rush anything. They don't want anyone to take on more than they can handle. and set them up to succeed a little bit. I don't know if that's the case. I don't want to speak ill of anything, but he's had 3 or 4 like big botch storyline moments that kind of embarrassed him. I don't know. So I do think they're pumping the brakes some.
Has something happened with Zilla? Did Zilla sign somewhere? Is that why?
No, so as of right now, Zilla is still a free agent. So when we were talking about all the possibilities of other, family tree members coming in to wrestle for Bloodlines outside of Hikuleo and Lance Anoa'i being signed, Zilla was just my curveball. I was just like, Zilla hasn't signed to a major Fed yet.
Well, Zilla also made the joke, right? He was like, "See y'all real soon," and everyone went, "Oh!" and then went and did 2 GCWs in a row.
Yeah, so Zilla is Zilla and GCW are doing some talking, but Zilla is also has 3 championships, and he's a Hog Pro Wrestling champion, and he's also champion in 2 other places too. So
sure,
it's crazy. But yeah, I need some explanation as to how Bronson Reed found himself aligning himself with Solo. I just need that small little bit. It's like, okay, I can get behind this. That's fine. It is what it is. We get to the Kevin Owens filmed in my car on the phone promo, which ended up being so much better than it should have been. Right. That's because Kevin is such a reliable vet. He already knows what works and what doesn't.
Yep.
And so Nick,
like I said earlier, calling him out for
being handed everything, pretty much.
For being everything gets handed to you. You're this golden child just because you have a famous friend. Like, there's this working class angle there that Kevin Owens is going to exploit, and he's going to do the same Stone Cold thing, right? You're the heel, but we love you because you're telling the truth. And that could lead to the cracks that start to flip Cody around way down the line. I don't think that's anytime soon, but I think Kevin Owens could rally for that. Or you have him versus Orton in this triple threat that we've all been kind of waiting for. I don't know.
We shall see. Which then brings us into one of 2 championship matches that we will be getting towards the tail end of the show. And this is for the WWE Tag Team Championships. The Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, taking on Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins of the Street Profits. I should not have been surprised, but I smelled shenanigans from last week when this match was made. I'm like, I smell shenanigans coming along. And for what we got, Montez Ford comes in with this intensity for this match. Like, he's about to whoop everybody's ass. And I'm just like, these are the Profits I need to see all the time. Show up with this intensity. Like, and not to say that this is coming from when Montez's interview a few weeks ago where he stated that he loves what he does, but he's creatively frustrated of not feeling like the Profits are getting the respect they deserve in the company, which, I don't necessarily disagree with.
Yeah.
And I thought for what we got, again, Kevin Owens is a vet that is a reliable hand. I put the guns in the same vein. Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin have been in this business for 25 plus years. They are, to me, the best tag team in the world. I'm not going to fight. I will fight anybody else who says otherwise. But they're also very reliable. But you also have the Profits. These men pull out amazing matches. Like, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago? Where I was not invested in the Profits versus the Usos at Money in the Bank like 2 or 3 years ago. And that ended up being my favorite match of the whole entire flipping card because the 4 of them brought out crazy stuff and did amazing things. And I know the Profits are championship material. It's just that we haven't given to them.
Yeah.
We get like 10 minutes into the match, and then Tommaso Ciampa rears his ugly but very jacked head into everything. Because when he ripped off the jacket, I was just like, all right, Tommaso, I see you. I'll be like, hey.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is where I talk about the double turn because Johnny Gargano gets in. Johnny has ties with the Guns. Is trying to calm the situation down as Montez and Angelo are recovering off screen a little bit. Tommaso gets frustrated. It looks like DIY is about to leave the ring amicably. And then Tommaso pushes Johnny to the floor. So we're probably going to get a DIY having issues and splitting very soon. The Guns go up to Montez and Dawkins afterwards, telling them this is not how we wanted this match to go. And Angelo decks Alex Shelley in the face as the Profits leave. So I'm like, yes, frustrated Street Profits. Give me those guys. Like,
I like it. I have no problem with it. I thought it was funny that they did the nod to Bobby Lashley leaving as Corey Graves was talking to them coming down. Like, yeah, they had this identity under one gentleman who went to another company for better whatever. It's like, oh, that stings. Okay. That was great. Street Profits could work against, inflatable dolls and still crush it. Like, they're amazing. And putting them up with Motor City Machine Guns, which I was a little bit familiar with. I'm getting more familiar with because you and Andrew have been talking about them forever. I did go back and watch a few. They're remarkable. So they're great in the ring. I do think they should have the title. I think they're doing everything right. It does kind of feed, again, the WWE, hey, people of color have to work twice as hard and twice as long sometimes. Why are the Street Profits getting tagged all the time? I do want to. I don't mind them as heels. I'm very interested when they're full heel like this. I think it could still be fun. I kind of miss Solo Cup Street Profits because they just haven't done that because probably they don't want to clean it up. And I'm talking about everything but the match because the match was great. Like, this was so much fun. I had a blast watching this. I'm kind of sad for DIY that they're kind of stuck. They do need a bit of a turn to kind of get them going again. I think Johnny Gargano will get his due someday. It's just too bad he's got to wait behind all these other folks. I don't know what the tag picture looks like. It's kind of a strange enigma of where do we go? Who's a holder? Who's a this? Who's a that thing? So I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I have some interesting thoughts on this. So I think there's a couple ways you can go because this was such I don't want to call it a 50-50 booking, but it was a 50-50 booking way of getting out of, we're not going to break up the Street Profits because we're not ready to do it, which is dumb to me because I think you could still do it. First off, we're talking about challengers and the lack of mid card. Now you just on SmackDown, you just brought in Nakamura. Great. You could break up the Street Profits. Montez Ford goes right into the mid card.
Mm-hmm.
You could also, if you broke them up, I could see them B-Fab going with Dawkins as heels. And that maybe prolongs Dawkins' shelf life on the main roster as a singles, wrestler. The other thing is, I worry that breaking up DIY to me is dumb for this reason. Like, the only benefit of breaking up DIY is you add Johnny Gargano to the mid card, and it strengthens the U.S. title mid card, which is fine, but it hurts Ciampa. Ciampa is not going to get the same push on the main roster as a singles wrestler he was.
Agreed. Sure.
Yeah. So then, and DIY as a tag team has much more value against a team like the Guns. Now you have the Guns as tag champions. Keep them all together. I think that this was an opportunity that you could have just take the L for the Street Profits, break them up, give Dawkins something new, a fresh coat of paint, maybe make them heel Dawkins and B-Fab and just let them do something and feud with Ford for like a month or two until they can figure it out. And keep DIY. I would keep them as even as faces. Doesn't really matter. I don't think they work as heels well, but maybe they could. Keep them together because the tag division needs it, and you can have so many great matches, DIY and the Guns, and still left on that card. It seems like it's kind of like opposite directions. To me, I don't like either of them, the decisions.
I agree. Now that you have Motor City Machine Guns, you're hinting at breaking up two tag teams in the division. Like, where are we going? What are we doing?
Which we should not do because we barely have enough men's tag teams in SmackDown as it is. Because right now it's the Guns, the Profits, DIY, and I need them to stop being used as cannon fodder. But we also have Pretty Deadly too. Please, I want so much more for our boys at Pretty Deadly, but that's just me. They are so good. They're just used for their gimmick, and that's frustrating.
I hope they get some kind of due someday because they.
I'm also mad that Pretty Deadly and Tiffany aren't a thing like now, because I thought we were getting that, and I love Tiffany and Pretty Deadly as a little weird unit.
They were,
and
great.
Then we kind of just dropped it out of nowhere, which made me super sad.
Let them, well, when she becomes champion, let her have that as her court again with them.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because her
like the tag titles with her and make that like a strong group for a couple
yes.
Yeah, that would be a blast. Yeah.
As like the three people that watch NXT UK, they made their gimmick work, but they were also like really good tag team champions too.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like the things they did with the belt were hilarious to watch, but when it came to in-ring, they still performed very well. So I want that version of Pretty Deadly. But speaking of championships, we get into our main event and my personal favorite match of Smackdown and WWE programming this week on the main roster, to be honest with you. But we get a WWE Women's Championship match, Nia Jax versus Naomi. I love Naomi. I really, really do. She can do no wrong in my eyes. I don't care. I'm biased as hell. I will admit it, but that is my girl. From following her being tag team champ in WWE to her using her real name of Trinity on the, when she went to TNA, which was a lot of fun to watch. And then having her back here under the moniker of Naomi is fantastic. Nia Jax was a lot of fun to watch. This match was just a lot of fun. I thought this was a great championship match. And it perpetuated a lot of storylines because towards the tail end of this match, we cut backstage. Liv and Raquel beat up Bianca and Jade, who were supposed to act as Naomi's like safety net, because there was also that interaction between Bianca and Bayley earlier in the night with Naomi looking like a child of divorce caught in the middle, which was fantastic. But shenanigans were abound because Tiffany tried to come out to cost Naomi the match. That didn't work. So Candice LeRae somehow gets involved because she's also upset with Naomi. Bayley comes out to even the odds to take out Candice, but unfortunately is not enough. Tiffany is able to distract enough to allow Nia Jax to hit her finisher onto Naomi for the 3 count. Your winner and still WWE Women's Champion, Nia Jax. So I thought this was a really good main event. Everybody is in there. Candice and Stratton are with Nia as they stand over Naomi, who is recovering. So before we get to the final segment of the night, boys, what did we think of this championship match between Nia and Naomi?
I love that we have a women's title match at such. We've been calling for this for a long time, but the fact that, like you said, it was almost every single promotion had a women's main event match, right? Which sounds fantastic to me, and I'm happy to see that there. Great match. They could have, with all the shenanigans that normally gets done with women's matches and plot lines and other things, this could have been 50 minutes of backstage attacks and shenanigans. No, it was a pretty straightforward match with all that in it too. I thought it was fun. It's hard for me to say, trying to be articulate. I'm excited to see where it goes. The issues around the women's division have nothing to do with this match. The two of them working together was actually great. I think Nia Jax is getting better, even though she should be like, she's still working safe. She's still doing cool things. It's hard for me to articulate what I want to say. I want to know where we're going.
Well, I think the problem here is that, if this was just the standard, hey, Naomi's getting a shot at this championship match, and then if this was going to be a continuing feud, I'd be like, okay, let's see what a round 2 looks like. But I think at this point, because of what we saw go down on Monday Night Raw with Naomi appearing, even if you weren't aware of the double taping for Raw and SmackDown spoilers, you can tell that this was just a means to an end to set up what's going down at War Games. So I don't think Naomi gets another shot at that championship past this. And it's like a one and done. And I think that's where I'm frustrated with. I mean, granted, sometimes you can just have one and done feuds as filler and they can still be great. But because of everything with Crown Jewel, I think my overall frustration with this is that I think if we took out Crown Jewel, we could have had like a better one and done feud, but Naomi got a chance for the championship because she beat Tiffany. She beat Nia in a non-title defense, but
Yeah.
then we had to wait weeks because we were building towards Crown Jewel between Liv and Nia. And then that's done, but now we're building to Survivor Series with, cross-promotional brand for the women of Raw and SmackDown getting involved in that War Games match. So.
And I think this loss gives me hope that Naomi might be the upset for that bracket we were talking about earlier, right? Since she took the pin here with all the shenanigans and other stuff and what could happen, maybe it is Naomi that makes it all the way through that other one. And do we get a Naomi Bailey 2, which would be wild. I would love to see that, but again, trying to pick women's division is hard because they like to meddle and spin it around so much. Nick, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I agree. I think it'd be nice, and then to see Naomi Bailey too, and find a way to finally turn Naomi heel, and just like you thought you had all this backup, or all these friends, you don't really. Bailey screwed you out of a shot at the women's world title in the past. Your friends that supposedly had your back the last couple months didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that I don't know. In terms of the match, I didn't really like typical to me, like kind of what I expected from the both of them. Not really.
It wasn't bad. It was solid. I mean, he's like, hey, good. Okay, we're here. Cool, great. But like we were talking before, right? This wasn't a PLE match. It wasn't a hey, don't get hurt match. It was good.
Anticlimactic.
I guess so, yeah. I guess I'm hyped that the women got the spot they got. So maybe that's sort of making me biased. But no, I feel you. Yeah.
So the last thing that we're going to talk about that happened on SmackDown this week is that a disheveled Roman Reigns gets on his cell phone and he says to call the wise man, which I was just like, ooh, Paul Heyman, we are gearing up to his return. And then, of course, the audio needed to be fixed. But as Roman Reigns called it, we was just like, we're sorry. The number that you have dialed has been disconnected. Try again later. Like
he called a damn landline. Come on.
I was like, we know Paul Heyman has a cell phone, Roman. Like, what is happening? But this was just so campy fun to me. Just Roman Reigns like drops the cell phone as this is still playing, sitting in the chair, just looking like, I don't know what to do, which is probably going to lead into either on Raw or SmackDown this week with Roman having to call Seth. Like, Seth, I need you, my guy. Like, I can't do this. Like, if it is not Seth, I would be surprised. That's what I'm going to be surprised with.
It's Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar walking out to the ring.
Oh my God. See, don't put that out into the universe. Like, I am going to catch so much heat for this, but Brock Lesnar can stay away. Like, nah, we're good.
No, I agree with you absolutely. Or is it Paul Heyman and CM Punk? Or is it Paul Heyman and
Hey, Punk would be more interesting to me but who knows if he's actually injured or not? And poor Drew
we have to go who in that Paul Heyman catalog, like, could he pull that's a curveball that makes sense? I don't know.
Curtis Axel. Do it.
Oh my God.
Good knowledge. Good knowledge.
I would love that so much. But boys, that does bring us to the end of this week's WWE programming. Overall, as ups and downs as we had, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Of course, we don't review NXT. That's separate, but NXT also kind of brought it this week and had this week of wrestling between WWE and AEW. NXT, once again, for the second week in the row, had the majority of its episode be dedicated to women's wrestling, which was fantastic. Yeah. Overall, I enjoyed this week's product of WWE. I had my ups and downs with it, but I thought it was a lot of fun. I will say I am going to be happy once Survivor Series is done and over with. Then we'll see what the next 2 months look like for WWE, especially because we got a little bit of a break because we get most of December leading into Saturday Night Main Event. And then we got all the time after that because Royal Rumble is not until the first Saturday of February. So we got extra time with all of that. But we are 2 weeks out from Survivor Series. So gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I've missed you, Professor. Nick, is always a pleasure to have you. And before we go and do all the sign-offs and everything, as I have to do, as this is the first show of the week, let's go over what this week looks like for BC WrestlePod.
Oh, we do so many things.
Yes, and this week is no exception. So tomorrow is the only day that we have nothing going on, but from Tuesday to next Sunday is going to be busy. So this upcoming Tuesday, we have our All Elite Ensemble review. So we are reviewing this past week of AEW television, and we will also be doing our predictions for Full Gear, as that is coming up very shortly. On Wednesday, we do our double header of our NXT and CMLL reviews throughout the evening that night. On Thursday, Andrew and I will be doing a review for the Nick Gage Invitational 9 that GCW had on last night. If you don't have Triller, please go check that show out. If you want to know what death matches look like in GCW, it is a sight to behold. It is amazing. Had some feel-good moments in there too. On Friday, ROH is back after a bit of a hiatus, and TNA is also going to be back after a brief hiatus as well. And we got that doubleheader feature, but then the big thing is this upcoming Saturday is the full AEW Full Gear watch along, where myself, Adolfo, and maybe some other folks from the AEW crew will come in to watch this. And then we round out the week with our next Dual Dynasty review next week, where we review the shows and do our predictions for Survivor Series. And then also we will be doing a watch along for GCW Bloodsport 12. So pretty busy week going into the Thanksgiving break.
Wow. Doing a lot. Goodness gracious.
Got it all out, Mikey. Yeah, that's impressive.
How, Nick, tell us how we could hear you chatting it up with Al Snow.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. So it's just my name. So Nick Titaro is the channel, but it's the Nick Wrestling Happy Hour. So my wife Nicole and I, obviously Nick, so Nick Club. We air Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern. Call-in show. We usually have our call-ins probably around like 6:45, 7ish. So, everyone. We have a lot of different callers. Mikey comes on. We love having you, Professor. You're always welcome to join us if you.
Yeah, I got to do that.
But yeah, last Friday we had Al Snow. Just you never know who's going to call in, and Al just called in. It was a great time kind of talking about wrestling today and safe wrestling moves and what moves he thinks are banned, things like that. So it was a great time. But honestly, guys, always a pleasure coming on here.
They're already here. They're here already. Oh, nice. Sorry, I was checking it as you said.
It's fine. And viewers, you should probably.
Oh, Mikey, did you cut out right at the end of the show?
We got him back.
I got it back. I'm
Mikey.
here. I promise. So the forbidden door opens and swings both ways. So you will see me very soon over there with Nick and his lovely wife, not only on their show, but you may or may not see me pop in for their Survivor Series review. So it's going to be fun. We are I am truly trying to establish working relationships with folks out here. And Nick and his wife are lovely people. Go check out their work. Their stuff is amazing. I watched the Al Snow interview. It is fantastic. I love every single minute of it. But we got to get up on out of here because I am going to mentally recover because I have to lead a bunch of folks through another podcast later tonight as we have our BC WrestlePod monthly special where we are doing a wrestling draft similar to the NFL where we are drafting our dream rosters. So that is going to be a fun bit. Myself, Minnie, Jesse, Adolfo, and Alice, as of right now, so far who we have, we're going to be doing this. And I also have Andrew's picks I'm going to read because he sent me some interesting ones as well. So tune back into 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern to check that out. But for myself, the professor, friend to the channel, Nick, and the rest of the BC WrestlePod family, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay iconic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We will catch you later for the podcast episode tonight. But until then, sayonara, adios, and we'll see you next time.